A tragic loss. Zara Nakano, age 10, pressed her face against the window of the transport ship, her bright green eyes wide with wonder as she watched the stars streak by. "Look, Mama," she said, pointing at a particularly colorful nebula in the distance. "It's so pretty." Himari Nakano smiled at her daughter's enthusiasm. As a diplomat for the United Earth Federation, she had been to dozens of star systems, but she never got tired of seeing the awe on Zora's face. "Yes, sweetheart, it is. And soon you'll get to see where Mama and Papa work." Zora bounced in her seat with excitement. Her parents had been posted to Kaztor, the homeworld of the Kaztic Empire, for the past year, working to maintain the delicate peace between humanity and the insectoid species. Now finally, Zora would get to see it for herself. As the transport docked at the human embassy on Kaztor, Zora's father Daichi was waiting for them. The tall, broad-shouldered man engulfed his daughter in a hug. "There's my little star," he said, his voice warm with affection. "Ready for an adventure?" Over the next few days, Zora explored the alien world with boundless curiosity, marveling at the towering hive-like structures of the Kaztic cities and the shimmering exoskeletons of the insectoid beings. She peppered her parents with questions about their work, about the history between humans and Kaztic, about how they were making friends across the stars. "It's not always easy," Himari explained as they walked through the embassy gardens. "The Kaztic are very different from us. But that's why it's so important that we keep talking, keep trying to understand each other." Zara nodded solemnly. "When I grow up, I want to be a diplomat like you and Papa. I want to make friends with everyone in the galaxy." Himari hugged her daughter close. "I know you will, my little star. I know you will." But even as the Nakano family enjoyed their time together, tensions were rising beneath the surface of Kaztic society. A rogue faction, led by the charismatic and ruthless General Zixkar, believed that the Kaztic Empire had become weak by tolerating the presence of humans and other alien races. They dreamed of a return to the old ways, when the Kaztic reigned supreme and unchallenged. On Zora's 5th day on Kaztor, the unthinkable happened. As she and a group of other human children played in a park near the embassy, a series of explosions ripped through the area. Kaztic soldiers, their exoskeletons painted with the blood-red markings of Zixkar's faction, swarmed into the park, blades flashing in the alien sunlight. Himari and Daichi, in a meeting at the embassy, heard the blasts and rushed outside. The scene that greeted them was one of unimaginable horror. The once peaceful park was now a smoking crater, littered with the broken bodies of human children. At the center of the carnage lay Zora, her bright green eyes staring sightlessly at the alien sky. A wail of grief and rage tore itself from Himari's throat as she cradled her daughter's lifeless form. Daichi stood over them, his fists clenched, his face a mask of shock and pain. Around them, the other human diplomats and staff reeled from the attack, tending to the wounded, trying to make sense of the senseless. The Kaztic soldiers had withdrawn as quickly as they had come, leaving only death and questions in their wake. News of the atrocity spread like wildfire across the galaxy. On Earth, the shock and outrage was palpable. The unprovoked slaughter of innocent children, the children of diplomats no less, was an act of war that could not go unanswered. In the halls of power, Earth's leaders debated their response. Some urged caution, insisting that they must not stoop to the Kaztic's level. Others demanded blood for blood, calling for the full might of Earth's military to be brought to bear. But as the debates raged, a change was coming over the people of Earth. The old divisions that had fragmented humanity for centuries began to seem petty in the face of this shared tragedy. From the mega-cities of Earth to the farthest-flung colonies, humans of all nations and creeds came together in grief and solidarity. In the end, it was Himari and Daichi Nakano who tipped the scales. Still reeling from their unfathomable loss, they stood before the United Earth Council, their voices raw with emotion, but unshakable in their resolve. "Our daughter believed in a galaxy where all species could live together in peace, Himari said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. She believed in the power of understanding, of friendship. That belief, that dream, died with her on Castor. Daichi took his wife's hand, his voice low and fierce. The Kaztek have shown us what they think of peace, of diplomacy. They have sown the wind, and now they will reap the whirlwind. As the council watched in somber silence, Daichi turned to face the cameras that would carry his words to every corner of human space. Hear me, people of Earth. The time for talk is over. The time for action has come. We will not rest until justice is done, until the galaxy is safe for all our children. This is the vow we make, in the memory of our daughter Zora, and in the name of all humanity. And with those words, Earth began to awaken from its long slumber, like a sleeping giant roused to terrible wrath. In secret labs and shipyards across the solar system, humanity's greatest minds and resources were mobilized for a single purpose: to make the Kaztek pay for what they had done. The galaxy would soon tremble before the fury of Earth, and the name of Zara Nakano would be remembered forever, a rallying cry for a humanity united as never before. In the darkness of interstellar space, a fleet of ships gathered, sleek and deadly, bearing the scars of old battles and the promise of new ones. At their head was a vessel unlike any the galaxy had seen, a dagger of black metal with the words, "Remember Zara" emblazoned on its hull. On its bridge stood Admiral Nara Singh, her dark eyes hard as flint as she looked out at the stars. She had seen too much war in her lifetime, but she knew that this fight was one that could not be avoided. As she watched the ships of her fleet move into formation, Singh's thoughts turned to the little girl whose death had set these events in motion. She thought of the promise she had made to Zora's parents, the vow she had sworn before all humanity. "I will not fail you," she whispered to the memory of Zara Nakano. "I will not fail any of you. This I swear, on my life and my honor." And with a final nod to her crew, Admiral Singh gave the order that would change the galaxy forever. Set course for Castor. It's time to show the Kaztek what happens when they awaken the fury of Earth. Humanity unites. In the days following the attack on Castor, a somber pall hung over Earth and its colonies. The images of the slain children, the raw grief of their parents, seemed to be everywhere, a constant reminder of the tragedy that had befallen humanity. But amidst the mourning, something else was stirring. In city squares and town halls, in schools and places of worship, people began to gather. They came from all walks of life, all nations and creeds, united by a shared sense of loss and a growing desire for action. At first, the gatherings were small, spontaneous. People simply coming together to comfort each other, to try to make sense of the senseless. But as the days passed, the crowds grew larger, more organized. Speeches were made, banners were raised, the names of the fallen children were chanted like a litany. "Remember Zara," they cried. "Remember our children." In the halls of power, Earth's leaders watched these developments with a mix of sorrow and trepidation. They knew that their people were hurting, that they were angry, but they also knew that a misstep now could lead to a war that would engulf the galaxy. It was amidst this growing turmoil that the United Earth Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from every nation and colony were present, their faces grim and determined. At the center of the chamber stood Himari and Daichi Nakano, their grief still raw and palpable. They had become the unwitting faces of this tragedy, their loss a symbol of humanity's shared pain. As the session began, the debates that had long divided humanity came to the fore. Some representatives urged caution, insisting that they must exhaust all diplomatic avenues before resorting to force. Others argued that the time for talk had passed, that only a show of strength would deter further aggression. Back and forth the arguments raged, growing more heated by the moment. But through it all, Himari and Daichi remained silent, their eyes fixed on a hollow image of their daughter that hovered above the council floor. Finally, as the debate reached a fever pitch, Daichi rose to his feet. The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to him. "My friends," he began, his voice heavy with emotion. "I understand your concerns. I too have devoted my life to the pursuit of peace, but there can be no peace without justice, no justice without accountability." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the room. "The Kaztik have shown us, in the most brutal way possible, what they think of our efforts at diplomacy. They have slaughtered our children, our future, without provocation or mercy. This cannot stand." Beside him, Himari rose, her small frame trembling with barely suppressed rage. "Our daughter believed in a better galaxy," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. "She believed that we could build bridges of understanding between all species. But the Kaztik have burned those bridges. They have left us no choice." In that moment, looking at the faces of these grieving parents, the assembled leaders of humanity felt their resolve harden. The old divisions and squabbles seemed to melt away, replaced by a growing sense of unity and purpose. And so, with a heavy heart but an iron will, the United Earth Council made its decision. Humanity would respond to the Kaztik atrocity with the full might of its military and economic power. There would be no more talk, no more hesitation. The galaxy would learn what it meant to provoke the fury of Earth. As news of the Council's decision spread, the people of Earth and its colonies reacted with a mix of solemnity and grim satisfaction. The time for mourning was not over, but now it was joined by a sense of determination, a resolve to see justice done. In factories and shipyards across human space, the gears of war began to turn. The mighty industrial base of Earth, long dormant, roared to life. Ships and weapons that had existed only as blueprints and prototypes were suddenly put into mass production. But the most significant development was taking place in secret, in hidden research facilities and black ops labs. Here, humanity's greatest scientific minds had been gathered, tasked with developing a weapon that would assure victory over the Kaztik. Leading this effort was Dr. Elena Sato, a brilliant physicist and engineer. She had lost her own child in the attack on Castor, and now she poured all her grief and rage into her work. Day and night, Dr. Sato and her team labored, pushing the boundaries of known science. They drew on the most advanced theories of quantum mechanics and exotic matter, seeking a breakthrough that would change the course of the coming war. And then, in a moment that would be remembered as a turning point in human history, they found it. The details of the discovery were kept under the tightest secrecy, known only to a handful of individuals at the highest levels of government. But its potential was clear. With this new technology, humanity would have a weapon capable of defeating the Kaztik once and for all. As the preparations for war continued, Admiral Nara Singh found herself at the center of a maelstrom of activity. As the designated leader of Earth's retaliatory strike, the weight of responsibility fell heavy on her shoulders. But if Singh felt the pressure, she did not show it. With a calm and methodical precision, she oversaw the marshaling of Earth's forces. Ships and personnel were mobilized, strategies were drafted and refined, supply lines were secured. And through it all, Singh kept the memory of Zara Nakano close to her heart. She had made a promise to the girl's parents, a vow to see justice done, and she intended to keep that promise, whatever the cost. As the last pieces of the plan fell into place, Singh found herself standing on the bridge of her flagship, the sleek and deadly vessel that bore Zara's name. Around her, the ships of humanity's secret fleet hung in the void, a silent and terrible presence. Singh knew that the coming battle would be the greatest test humanity had ever faced, but she also knew that they would not face it alone. The spirit of every man, woman, and child on Earth and its colonies was with them, a force more powerful than any weapon. "Remember Zara," she whispered, her eyes fixed on the stars ahead. "Remember our children. Today we fight for them all." And with those words, Admiral Singh gave the order to begin the attack. The fury of Earth was about to be unleashed, and the galaxy would tremble before it. The sleeping giant awakens. In the heart of the Kaztik Empire, life continued much as it always had. The insectoid species went about their daily routines, tending to their hives, their spawn, and their duties to the empire. If they gave any thought to the distant humans and the atrocity committed against them, it was only to dismiss them as weak, inferior beings beneath the notice of the mighty Kazdik. This complacency was shared by the empire's leadership. In the Grand Council chambers of the Kazdik capital, the emperor and his advisors discussed the attack on the human children with a casual indifference. These humans, the emperor clicked, his mandibles twitching with contempt. They are soft, sentimental creatures. They lack the strength, the resolve, to challenge us. His advisors chittered in agreement. They will bluster and posture, one said. But in the end, they will submit. They always do. But there was one among the Kaztik leadership who did not share this confidence. General Zixkar, the mastermind behind the attack on Castor, watched the proceedings with a growing sense of unease. Zixkar was a hardened warrior, a veteran of countless campaigns against the Empire's enemies. He had seen firsthand the tenacity, the resourcefulness of the humans in battle, and he had studied their history, marveling at their ability to unite and mobilize in the face of existential threats. "My lord," he said, stepping forward, "I urge caution. The humans are not to be underestimated. They are a young species, but they are clever and adaptable, and they are capable of great violence when provoked." The emperor fixed Zixkar with a withering stare. "You overstepped, General," he clicked, his tone dangerous. "The humans are insignificant. They will learn their place, or they will be destroyed. There is no other outcome." Zixkar bowed his head, mandibles clicking in submission. But inwardly, he seethed. The emperor was a fool, blinded by arrogance and tradition, and his folly would doom the Kaztik Empire. Far beyond the borders of Kaztik space, the forces of humanity were on the move. From the shipyards of Earth and its colonies, a vast armada was emerging, a fleet of warships unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. At the head of this armada was the UES Zara, the flagship of Admiral Nara Singh. It was a marvel of human engineering, a sleek and deadly vessel bristling with the most advanced weapons and technology Earth had to offer. On the bridge of the Zara, Singh stood tall and resolute, her dark eyes fixed on the viewscreen before her. Around her, her crew worked with quiet efficiency, their faces set with determination. "Status report," Singh barked. "All systems nominal, Admiral," her first officer replied. "The fleet is in formation and ready for jump." Singh nodded. "And our payload?" "Secure and primed," the officer reported. "Dr. Seto's team reports all systems green." Singh allowed herself a small, grim smile. The weapon Dr. Sato and her team had developed, codenamed Nemesis, was the key to their entire strategy. With it, they would strike at the very heart of the Kaztik Empire, and they would not stop until justice was done. "Prepare for jump," Singh ordered. "Destination: Castor." As the fleet of human ships prepared to make the jump to hyperspace, a sense of anticipation, of barely contained energy, filled the air. For months, they had trained and planned for this moment, each man and woman honing their skills and steeling their resolve. They knew that the coming battle would be unlike anything humanity had faced before. The Kaztik were a formidable foe, with a vast and powerful military machine. But the humans had something the Kaztik did not, a righteous fury, born of grief and loss, that would not be denied. In the moments before the jump, Admiral Singh's voice rang out across the fleet, a clarion call to arms. "Remember why we fight," she said, her words carried to every ship, every soldier. "Remember the innocent lives taken, the futures cut short. Remember Zara Nakano and all our fallen children." As one, the fleet responded. Their voices joined in a mighty chorus. "We remember," they cried, "for Earth and for justice." And with that, the ships of humanity leaped into hyperspace, hurtling towards their destiny. In their wake, the stars seemed to tremble as if the very fabric of the cosmos could sense the coming storm. On the Kaztik homeworld, life went on as usual. In the markets and the hives, in the spawning chambers and the training grounds, the insectoid species carry out their duties with a single-minded focus. But then, without warning, the skies above the capital city began to darken. A great shadow fell over the land, and a sound like the roar of 1,000 engines filled the air. The Kaztik looked up, their compound eyes widening in shock and fear, for there, emerging from the clouds like avenging angels, were the ships of humanity. The fleet had arrived, and with it, the fury of Earth. The Kaztik scrambled to mount a defense, but it was too little, too late. The human ships tore through their defenses like a hot knife through butter, their weapons cutting a swath of destruction through the Kaztik fleets. At the center of this maelstrom was the UES Zara, her guns blazing, her hull shimmering with an eerie, pulsing light. And on her bridge, Admiral Singh watched the carnage unfold with a cold, implacable resolve. "Target their command and control centers," she ordered. "Cripple their ability to coordinate a response." As the battle raged, the true power of Dr. Seto's nemesis weapon became clear. It was a device that could manipulate gravity itself, creating localized singularities that tore Kaztik ships apart like paper. Against such a weapon, the Kaztik had no defense. Within hours, the once proud Kaztik fleet was in ruins, their ships shattered and burning. And in the streets of their capital, the insectoid warriors ran and chittered in fear as human soldiers in powered armor marched through the rubble, their weapons at the ready. In the Grand Council chamber, the Emperor and his advisors huddled together, their earlier arrogance replaced by a palpable terror. They had underestimated the humans, and now they were paying the price. Only General Zixkar remained calm, his mandibles clicking in grim satisfaction. He had warned them, but they had not listened. And now the Empire would burn. As the dust of battle began to settle, Admiral Singh stood on the surface of Kaztor, her boots crunching on the shattered remains of Kaztik exoskeletons. Around her, her soldiers secured the area, their faces grim behind their helmets. Singh knew that this was only the beginning. The Kaztik Empire was vast, and its leaders would not surrender easily. But she also knew that humanity would not rest until justice was done, until the galaxy was made safe for all species. She looked up at the sky, where the stars were just beginning to emerge through the smoke and dust. Somewhere out there, she knew, Zora Nakano was watching. And Singh made a silent promise to the fallen girl, and to all the children of Earth. "We will not fail," she whispered. "We will not falter. This is our vow, our sacred duty. For you, Zara, and for all humanity." And with that, Admiral Singh turned to her troops, ready to lead them into the next phase of the war. The sleeping giant of humanity had awoken, and the galaxy would never be the same. Burning skies. The news of humanity's stunning victory at Kaztor spread like wildfire across the galaxy. On 100 worlds, in 1,000 languages, the story was told and retold, how the upstart humans, provoked beyond endurance, had struck back against the mighty Kaztik Empire and brought it to its knees. In the halls of power on distant planets, leaders and diplomats whispered to each other in shock and awe. The Kaztik had been a dominant force in the galaxy for centuries, their military might unquestioned. And yet, in a matter of days, the humans had shattered that might, burning the Kaztik fleets from the stars. But for the soldiers of Earth, there was no time to rest on their laurels. Even as the ashes of Kaztor cooled, Admiral Singh was already planning the next stage of the campaign. "We have hurt them," she told her officers, gathered in the war room of the UES Zara, "but we have not broken them. Not yet." She gestured to the holographic map that floated before them, a spider's web of stars and systems. "Intelligence suggests that the Kaztik are regrouping here, in the Zakari system. They're gathering their remaining ships, shoring up their defenses. They think they can hold us off." A grim smile touched her lips. "They are wrong." Over the next week, The human fleet moved like a scythe through Kaztik space, striking at military installations, supply lines, and command centers. They were surgical, methodical, leaving civilian targets untouched. For this was not a war of conquest or extermination. It was a war of justice, of retribution for the innocent lives taken. At every engagement, the humans proved their superiority. Their ships were faster, their weapons more advanced, their tactics more innovative. And always at the heart of their success was the Nemesis device, the gravity-manipulating wonder weapon that had turned the tide at Castor. Under the onslaught of human firepower, the Kaztik defenses crumbled. Their ships fell from the sky like burning meteors, their bases were reduced to rubble. And in their capital city, the once arrogant emperor chittered and cowered, his earlier bravado replaced by a deep, gnawing fear. Only General Zixkar, the architect of the attack on human children, remained defiant. Even as the human fleet closed in on the Zakari system, he rallied his loyalists, urging them to fight to the last. "These humans are soft," he chittered, his mandibles clacking with fury. "They lack the stomach for a prolonged war. If we can hold them here, if we can make them bleed, they will lose heart and retreat." But Zixkar had badly misjudged his enemy. For the humans were not fighting for conquest or glory. They were fighting for their fallen, for the memory of a little girl named Zara and all the other children lost to Kaztik cruelty. And such a cause, such a righteous fury, could not be easily quenched. As the battle for the Zakari system began, the skies above the Kaztik homeworld turned to fire. Human ships descended like avenging angels, their weapons blazing, cutting through the Kaztik defenses like a scythe through wheat. On the ground, human soldiers in powered armor clashed with Kaztik warriors in brutal, close-quarters combat. The insectoids fought with a desperate ferocity, but they were no match for the humans' advanced technology and unbreakable will. In the midst of this chaos, a team of human special forces, led by Captain John Takeshi, launched a daring raid on the Kaztik command bunker. Their mission: to capture General Zixkar and bring him to justice for his crimes. The fighting was intense, a blur of plasma fire and chitinous bodies. But Takeshi and his team were relentless, cutting their way through the Kaztik elite guard until they stood face to face with Zixkar himself. The general was a formidable opponent, his exoskeleton hardened by a lifetime of warfare, but he was no match for Takeshi's skill and fury. In a final, desperate struggle, the human captain bested the Kaztik warlord, taking him prisoner. As Zixkar was dragged away in chains, the fight seemed to go out of the remaining Kaztik forces. Seeing their leader defeated, they began to surrender en masse, throwing down their weapons and chittering for mercy. Within hours, the battle was over. The Zakari system, the last stronghold of the Kaztik Empire, had fallen. And across the galaxy, a stunned silence fell, as the magnitude of humanity's victory sank in. On the bridge of the UES Zara, Admiral Singh watched as the last of the Kaztik ships burned in the skies above the homeworld. Her face was lined with exhaustion, but there was a fierce pride in her eyes. "It's over," she said softly. "We've won." But even as she spoke, Singh knew that the true challenge was yet to come. For now, with the Kaztik defeated, humanity faced a choice. Would they be merciful in victory, showing the galaxy a better way, or would they succumb to the same cycle of violence and retribution that had plagued the cosmos for so long? It was a question that weighed heavy on Singh's mind as she prepared to return to Earth. She knew that the decisions made in the coming days would shake the future of not just humanity, but of every sentient species in the galaxy. As the UES Zara began its long journey home, Singh found herself once again in her quarters, staring at the holo image of Zara Nakano. The girl's bright, innocent smile seemed to light up the room, a reminder of all that had been lost and all that had been fought for. "We did it, Zara," Singh whispered. "We got justice for you and for all the others. But now we have to find a way to make sure this never happens again. We have to build a better galaxy, one where children can grow up without fear. She closed her eyes, feeling the weight of that responsibility settle on her shoulders. It would not be easy, she knew. The scars of war ran deep, and old hatreds died hard. But if anyone could rise to the challenge, it was humanity. For they had shown the galaxy the depths of their fury, the unbreakable strength of their unity. Now they would show them the power of their compassion, their wisdom, their hope. The story of humanity's rise had only just begun, and Admiral Singh knew that it would be a story for the ages, a story of tragedy and triumph, of loss and love, of the indomitable spirit of a species that refused to be broken. And at the heart of that story, shining like a beacon, would be the memory of a little girl named Zora, whose smile had lit up the stars. Ashes and alliances. As the ships of the victorious human fleet returned to Earth, a somber mood hung over the planet. The cost of the war had been high, paid in the blood of Earth's bravest sons and daughters. And though the Kaztik threat had been vanquished, there was little joy in the victory. For humanity now faced a new challenge, perhaps the greatest it had ever known. In the aftermath of the war, Earth found itself the dominant power in the galaxy, its military might unquestioned, its resolve unshakable. But with great power came great responsibility, and the leaders of humanity knew that the choices they made in the coming days would echo through the ages. The first of those choices concerned the fate of the defeated Kazdik. In the Grand Assembly Hall of the United Earth Government, the debate raged long into the night. There were those who called for harsh retribution, demanding that the Kaztik pay for their crimes with their very civilization. They pointed to the devastation wrought on human worlds, the innocent lives lost, and argued that only the total subjugation of the insectoid species would ensure lasting peace. But there were others, led by the impassioned voice of Himari Nakano, who urged a different path. Standing before the assembly, her eyes still haunted by the loss of her daughter, Himari spoke of the need for mercy, for understanding. "We have defeated the Kaztik," she said, her voice ringing clear in the hushed chamber. "But let us not become them in our victory. Let us show the galaxy that humanity is strong not only in war, but in compassion. That we seek not conquest, but coexistence." As Himari's words echoed through the hall, a murmur of agreement began to build. And in that moment, the course of history shifted. The assembly voted by a narrow margin to extend a hand of peace to the Kazdik. The insectoid species would be allowed to keep their homeworld and their core systems, but they would be subject to strict disarmament and oversight. Their leaders, those who had orchestrated the attack on human children, would face trial and punishment, but the Kaztik as a whole would be given a chance at redemption. It was a decision that sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Never before had a victorious power shown such restraint, such magnanimity. And as word of humanity's mercy spread, something began to change in the cosmos. On world after world, species that had long viewed each other with suspicion and fear began to look to humanity as an example. If the humans could make peace with their greatest enemy, could find a path to coexistence, then perhaps there was hope for the galaxy after all. In the months and years that followed, a new order began to take shape. Under the leadership of Earth, a great galactic alliance was forged, a union of species dedicated to the principles of peace, cooperation, and mutual understanding. At the heart of this alliance was a new institution, the Galactic Council, where representatives from 100 worlds came together to discuss and debate the great issues of the day. And presiding over this council, elected by unanimous acclaim, was none other than Himari Nakano. It was a role she had never sought, a burden she had never imagined bearing. But as she looked out over the sea of faces in the council chamber, beings of every shape and hue, all united in their commitment to a better future, Himari knew that this was her destiny. For she had become more than just a grieving mother, more than a symbol of humanity's loss. She was now the living embodiment of its highest ideals, the voice of its better angels. And so, under Himari's wise and gentle guidance, the galaxy began to heal. Trade routes reopened, cultural exchange flourished, and old enmities slowly faded into memory. The scars of war would never fully disappear, but they began to fade, replaced by the bonds of friendship and understanding. As for the soldiers who had fought so bravely in the war, they too found a new purpose. Many, like Admiral Singh, took up roles in the Galactic Council's peacekeeping force, using their skills and experience to maintain the fragile peace. Others returned to their homes and families, their duty done, their honor secured. But for all of them, the memory of the war, and of the little girl whose death had sparked it, remained forever etched in their hearts. Zara Nakano, the child martyr, the catalyst of change, whose sacrifice had bought a chance at a better future for all. As the years turned to decades, and the decades to centuries, the story of Zara and the Great War passed into legend. On 100 worlds, children learned of the bravery of the human soldiers, the wisdom of Himari Nakano, the birth of the Great Alliance. And though the details might fade with time, the essence of the story remained, passed down from generation to generation. It was a tale of tragedy and triumph, of the depths of evil and the heights of heroism. But most of all, it was a tale of hope, of the unquenchable spirit of life, of the power of unity in the face of adversity. For the galaxy had learned, through bitter experience, the truth of the old human saying, "United we stand, divided we fall." And in the end, it was that unity, that common bond of sentience and soul, that had proven stronger than any weapon, any army, any empire. The Kazdik, once the scourge of the galaxy, had become a cautionary tale, a reminder of the folly of aggression and the inevitability of justice. Their society, under the watchful eye of the Alliance, had undergone a profound transformation. The old ways of conquest and subjugation had been replaced by a new ethic of cooperation and mutual respect. It had not been an easy path, for the wounds of history ran deep. But guided by the example of humanity, by the indomitable spirit of a mother who had turned her grief into a force for change, even the Kaztik had found a way forward. And so, as the galaxy turned, as new challenges and opportunities arose, the legacy of Zara Nakano and the Great War endured. It was a legacy of resilience, of compassion, of the unbreakable bonds that tie all living things together. For in the end, the true victory had not been military, but moral. In their darkest hour, faced with an existential threat, humanity had not only prevailed, but had shown the galaxy a better way, a way of peace, of unity, of hope. And though the road ahead would be long and hard, though there would be setbacks and challenges, the course was set. The future, once a dark and uncertain thing, now shone with the light of 1,000,000 stars, each one a beacon of promise. For this was the legacy of Zara Nakano, the gift she had given to the galaxy. A gift purchased with blood and tears, but one that would endure as long as life itself. A gift of hope, of courage, of the unquenchable spirit of a species that had looked into the abyss and had not flinched. The spirit of humanity, unbroken and unbowed, now and forever.